This is a demonstration of the OneRoster Compatibility Check functionality that is part of the Trusted Apps Management Suite. OneRoster Check goes beyond conformance by helping districts easily identify and resolve common errors with their OneRoster files, and helps highlight potential problem areas to pay attention to when integrating with the product. The key to this is the characterization, which is a fingerprint of the district's OneRoster implementation, whether it be CSV or REST. I'm going to go through a very fast demo of the main features of OneRoster Check now. The process starts by adding a new characterization. And this means you either upload a CSV zip file or you provide credentials to your REST implementation. I'm going to use a CSV zip file. So we come into OneRoster Check. We choose the CSV specification. We give the characterization a name. We choose the source of the OneRoster file set. So if your SIS provides the OneRoster zip file for you, you can name your SIS. Otherwise, you can say district created if you build your own zip files. You can add any characterization notes, and then you can upload your file. I have a demo file I'm going to do. And then you just submit the characterization, and this runs through the process of first confirming conformance with the specification, and then doing some additional work to create the fingerprint for your district. So now I'm going to go through the characterization report. Our reports are fairly consistent in layout. The left side just reiterates what has occurred. This is a OneRoster CSV zip characterization. It provides you the date, etc., the name of the zip file. The middle report is the meat of the report, and this is where we use a traffic light metaphor to explain the implementation details. So if there was a green check mark, it would indicate that the file is in compliance with the specification. An amber check mark indicates that the file is compliant, but there are some additional details that you should be aware of that might impact your implementation. And if there were a red exclamation mark here, it would indicate that the file is not compliant with the specification and it must be corrected before you can successfully complete a characterization. So I'm going to open up one of these files, which has an amber check, just to show you what would be in the report. So essentially, we show you the layout of the file according to the specification, and then the details that have been revealed for your implementation, the position of the field name, whether it's a required field according to the spec, the format, the multiplicity, meaning does it allow more than one value, for example, a comma delimited set of values. The min-max is actually the minimum maximum value length of the field in your file. And then we provide the description from the spec. And then this population just indicates the extent to which that field is populated in the file. Consistent means every record has a value in that field. None means no records have a value in that field. And inconsistent means some records are populated and some aren't. And you can see we highlight these in amber. This field location is an optional field and it's inconsistently populated with data. This may cause issues if the data is required by a consumer's system. So again, it's compliant with the specification, but if the receiving end requires this field, you could run into issues. So this is revealing to you that it's inconsistently populated. The other thing a characterization could reveal is any metadata in the file, which would be of relevance when you integrate with a product, because they may or may not be able to handle metadata in the file. Now I'm going to quickly go through a red report, meaning an incompatible, non-compliant report. Same file layout. The left again tells you the details of the zip file you are characterizing or attempting to characterize. The middle of the report has the red exclamation point, which indicates non-compliance with the specification. Again, the red dots indicate critical exceptions that must be resolved before a characterization report can be generated. So let me open up one of these files and give you an example. So in this example, in the academic sessions.csv file, the end date field, there's a validation error. The record contains an invalid date. And in this case, it's because the OneRoster specification requires the date in a specific format, and this zip file does not have the date in that format. And so what you would do is go back to your file generation system, edit the format, make sure it's output in the correct format, and then you could reload your zip file and rerun the characterization. And you go through this iterative process until you can get to a successfully completed characterization. So the next step in this process is in regards to the supplier side. Within OneRoster Check, there is a product catalog, and suppliers come into OneRoster Check if they are OneRoster v1.1 certified in the 1EdTech Trusted Apps directory. The supplier comes in and creates their own fingerprint of their implementation, indicating their own requirements, and then they share this fingerprint with districts. So what we are going to do is try to compare our district fingerprint with the supplier's fingerprint. So I am going to search for a product that I am interested in, physics of the universe, and I am going to compare against my characterization. So I am going to select my district rosters characterization. Now, what this will do is compare the two fingerprints. I can share this comparison with the supplier if I want to, but by default, they're not shared. And I just quickly select launch. And again, this compares the two fingerprints. And the report is a similar layout. We reveal on the left side the two instances that are being compared. The middle has the same kind of traffic light metaphor. So this comparison report will alert districts to any areas they should pay attention to prior to integrating with a product. And red exclamation points, those are items that you would want to resolve prior to attempting an integration. So let me quickly reveal some of the additional interesting things of this report. The supplier could have provided implementation details, online help URL, a product support email. The supplier could also have included in their own fingerprint some additional notes that might help you. For example, they could have put in here whether they require a certain standard way of naming your zip files, all things that they could put in their notes so that when you run your comparison, you can identify things to pay attention to prior to actually integrating with this product. Then I'm going to open up the individual files and show you some additional details about the comparison. So in this instance, you can see the title field in classes. This supplier has added a note. If a class is taught in multiple periods, each period must have a unique title. So they're telling you what they might need of your data in this in their implementation. Another similar note they could put in here, if they truncate titles at 30 characters, that would be important to you because as you can see here, you have titles that are 60 characters long. So again, not showstoppers, but things you should be aware of prior to integrating with this supplier. I'll show you one other thing in orgs. So here is an example of a showstopper. The identifier field is an optional field in the specification, but this supplier has made it required. They note that the NCES ID is required for their implementation to uniquely identify the organization. And so we've identified a critical error because you have not consistently populated this within your characterized data set. In fact, you haven't even populated it at all. You have no min-max. So this is something that you would need to go back to your source system and make sure that you include this identifier in your zip file in order for you to be able to successfully integrate with this particular supplier. Again, these critical exceptions must be resolved before integration. All right, so the last thing I'll just show you is there's a dashboard, and it's basically a highlight of all the characterizations and comparisons that you have performed. And one additional feature here is this recent characterization summary, which provides a high level detail of the characterization. And so let me show you a red one. So this is an example of a high level report for the characterization you did for your school roster. It tells you your end date had invalid dates, you had an invalid enumeration in your subjects in your classes, you have a blank title in your courses, etc. So this is a nice high level snapshot of what is at issue with this particular zip file. And you can then address them systematically and rerun to hopefully get an amber or green report. And that is the OneRoster Compatibility Check functionality within the Trusted Apps Management Suite.